learn stuff. Yeah.
Hi, Greg here. If you're a musician or a teacher and you want to take advantage of the wealth of resources that are available to you online, then the first thing you're going to need is a good audio interface. An audio interface helps you get your voice and your music into your computer. Once that's happening, there's so many amazing things you can achieve. You can record yourself. You can give live performances on Facebook and YouTube. Or you can teach lessons and classes on a video conferencing platform like Zoom or Skype. So let me show you a couple resources that I have right here, and one interface in particular that I think is a great recommendation to get you up and running. Okay, the first interface I want to show you is the Focusrite Scarlett. It has two inputs. It's about $300, 200 and something dollars, depending on where you're trying to get it from. And there's a lot of interfaces similar to this in that price range available to you. It is primarily for recording, even though you can do those other things I talked about, live streaming with Facebook or teaching lessons on a platform like Zoom. It is possible, but you'll quickly see that some of the functionality you need is not there, and people will often have to put a mixer in front of this to achieve those things. So this is a great unit. Lots of great units like it out there, and it's great if you want to start being a recording artist or get into recording your music. What I'd like to show you today, however, is a mixer that is also an audio interface. And there's some great benefits to this that you're going to quickly see as soon as we start setting it up. So this is basically a small mixer. It's from a company named Art. This is affordable to get started. This is under $100, depending on where you buy it from. It is the Art USBMix4, and it is a mixer, but it also has a USB jack in the back, which gives it the same basic functionality of the Scarlett interface and other interfaces like that. So let's set this up. I'll start hooking some things up, and I'll show you very quickly just how useful this is for all of those things you might be trying to do online with your teaching or your music or what have you. So first, let's hook it up. Let's get the USB jack in here. So I'm going to grab this USB cable. Oh, sorry, my parrot fell on the floor. Just one sec. Come on, parrot. Jump on there, bud. There you go. Get back up where you were. There we go. So let's hook up the USB cable. And the beauty of it right away, you're going to notice for simplicity, is that it gets its power from the USB. Makes it also very portable. There is an on switch. So there you go, you're on, up and running, and it's now plugged into the computer. You have two main inputs here for microphones, and these can take 1/4-inch jacks, like a guitar plug, if you think of it that way, or a microphone. Let's plug a mic in. Perfect. And this could be all you need to do if you just want to connect it to your computer. But where the mixer or a USB-based mixer / interface becomes helpful is that you can also plug this into an amp and have a small PA system or speakers running in the room so that you can monitor yourself in the open, which can be very helpful for live performances. So let's plug in some cables here. 1/4-inch jacks, but that's not too bad. And we're going to plug those into the main outs. And that's going into our little PA. So we've got that connected. At this point, you'll probably be able to listen to the actual mixer itself, and we have a mic. Woo! So here's a microphone giving us the audio from the mixer and being recorded so that you can hear it. So we'll keep that mic out there for a sec. So that gives you the microphone, and this mic could be not just a regular vocal microphone like this, but it could be, if you think of it, a microphone like a wireless headset or a lav. And if you with a lav mic or a wireless headset, you could be doing something like yoga or workout classes, exercise instruction, and you can wear the microphone and you can plug it in. Now, some professional wireless microphones would have the same sort of plug or jack as this microphone does, and would plug in here into channel 1 or 2. However, if your microphone has a small little 3.5 or 1/8-inch headphone style jack like you might have with your cell phone, you still have an option here. You have an ability to plug this in right here where it says mic from headset. You can plug that in there, and it will actually patch that signal into channel 1 and more or less turn off this input that you're getting from this microphone here. So you could disconnect this and you could plug that into here, and this now becomes channel 1. So that's really useful. It means you don't have to worry about a lot of different cable connections. If you don't have, you know, $1,000 wireless headset, you can still plug it in and get up and running. I'll just plug that back in here. So you can plug in almost any type of mic into this mixer. You're not limited. If you go back and look at the Scarlett Focusrite interface, you can see that there's only 2 types of options here. And if you don't have that, then now you're looking for adapters and connectors. All right, so what else can we plug in? Here's where it gets really helpful for those who are trying to teach yoga classes, Zumba, coaching, any kind of an exercise or an athletic class. You want to patch your music in here. Now, there are ways that I can show you that you can use the same computer that you're live streaming with to play your music, but most people in the athletic circles like to come in with their own music. They might have it on their cell phone or on a tablet of some sort. So if you get a cable like this, which gives you the small headphone jack for your cell phone or tablet, and plug that in, and then these usually come with RCAs, but these little adapters, or little bullets that they're sometimes called, will adapt it up to 1/4 inch. And I'm going to plug that in here, channel 3 and 4, like so. Now you might say, well, Greg, why are you using this little plug right here? Which is great. It says aux MP3 in, that's perfect, and it's right there, and you can use it. And definitely, I'm not saying you can't use that, but there's a reason why I'm recommending this approach with a cell phone or a tablet. If I do plug this cable in, it will patch the signal from the cell phone into the mixer, but it is a direct into the main output of the mixer, so you don't have any volume control available to you to anything that you've plugged into this jack. It patches directly into the main outputs, and your only volume control is on the device that's playing the music. If you adapt from the Mini with such a cable to the RCAs and these bullets, and you plug it into channel 3 and 4, that means that this sound is now going into channel 3 and 4, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's labeled 3 and 4 right here. So this now gives you volume right at your fingertips with the mixer to play music. So all you have to do, fire up your music on your cell phone here. I've got some background Zumba music, and Zumba, everybody loves the Zumba. So we'll play some Zumba music here, and we'll bring that up. Let's see what we get. There we go, there's some Zumba music just booming. So I've got my Zumba music plugged in, and I've got my microphone, whatever the microphone might be, and I can now conduct my Zumba class. You can adjust your levels for your music. Have it loud, quiet, whatever you want it to be. Pretty cool. So you can see how you can very quickly and easily get up and running with an exercise class with this mixer. There are a couple more controls here that are worth talking about. You may not have a ton of experience with a mixer, and if you don't, we'll just quickly talk about those. When you do plug in a microphone, you're going to have to adjust this first little control knob here, which is called gain. Gain really is not the same as volume. Gain is where you boost the signal coming from a microphone to get it to an appropriate internal working electrical level within your mixer. That's okay if that went over your head, no worries. That's audio engineering stuff. But here's how you think about it. Some microphones have a weaker signal coming out of them than other microphones. So a microphone that has a very strong signal coming out of it, like a wireless headset that's plugged in and has a strong professional transmitter sending out a very strong signal, you may not need very much gain at all. But if you're plugging a regular old microphone like this guy, you'll need a lot more gain, so the gain's up fairly high here. So you adjust the gain based on the strength of the signal coming out of the microphone itself. Then once that's set, and you kind of had to play with that and figure it out. It's different for every mic. Then on bottom you have basically a volume, what's called a level. So here you can adjust the level of that microphone. So I can adjust the volume of this mic down to nothing. That was nothing. I had it turned down. This is at about 12 o'clock, and that's working at a decent level. Over here in channel 3, same volume, no gain on this channel, but channel 3 and 4 was my Zumba music. Okay, so that has no gain on it, but just volume, and that's okay. It's not a microphone, it's a signal from a device. There's another microphone input if you wanted to plug something else in. If you're a musician, this channel is where you could plug in a guitar or a 1/4-inch cable from a keyboard if you wanted to play keyboard music along with your vocal for a live stream or performance. So I can plug this in, and that's a guitar. So if you've got a guitar there, you can play your guitar. Let's bring up the level of the guitar, see what we got here. Bring up some gain here. Some gain, some volume. There you go. So you've got a vocal, test 1, 2, 3. You got a guitar, and now you can sing with your guitar. You can sing and play your guitar at the same time with a mixer. With a mixer. Streaming my vocal and guitar on Zoom or Skype, Facebook or YouTube. I'm making it up as I go along. Foolishness, I'll stop embarrassing myself. So you can get your guitar and your vocal mixed together and get them in good quality into any of those music-centric resources to get your music out there, to get your talent out there into the world, and it doesn't sound terrible like it does when you try to play acoustic guitar and sing into a webcam mic, which is half the problem when people sound not very good technically online. Okay, let's get back to talking about a few more things about the mixer. It's important to mention that you have a main mix, which I started with it at the 12 o'clock position. But when you unpack this mixer from the box, all these knobs are going to be either set all the way down, or with the EQ knobs, they're going to be in the center. And really, I'm not trying to give a mixer training video here, but I should mention that it's necessary, vital, to have your main mix up at 12 o'clock. Let's talk about what these different inputs actually, inputs and outputs actually do. So we've got all our signals patched in. Let's run through some of these settings. So we've got 2 channels that are mic or guitar ready. They've been set. We've set our gains appropriately. 1 for a vocal, 1 for a guitar. We've got our volume levels at the bottom, which is where you would really mix the blend of those 2 mic sources, whatever they might be. They're at sort of 12 o'clock. They may not always be 12 o'clock, but that's where they are. I've explained that you can bring in the music on a device like a cell phone in on channel 3 and 4, and this is the volume level for that. There's also a knob called computer. This is where this gets really effective and convenient for teaching guitar lessons or wanting to hear what's coming back from the computer. If you are wanting to listen back to what you've recorded, or if you want to hear your students on the other end of a video conference call in which you're using this as your audio interface, this little control knob here that's called computer is where you would set the volume level of what's coming back from the computer. So if it isn't obvious at this point, the beauty of an audio interface is that it handles all the audio going into the computer, but it also hands you back the returning audio from your computer. So if you're in a video conference call, you want to send out your voice. You also want to hear the voices and the signals of other people coming back. If you're teaching a guitar lesson, for example, or a exercise class, you may want to hear a question or some feedback from your students. And if they've got their microphones on and working, that's going to come back through the internet, through your computer, through your interface, and it's going to come back on this knob called computer. Now, as far as hearing them goes, that brings us to the next thing to talk about, monitoring, your own personal monitoring. We did originally patch these 2 cables here into our little amp so that we could hear the output in the room, but this is the feed for your speakers per se. You don't need to use speakers. There's 2 ways to connect to headphones, and through the headphones you could hear both yourself locally monitored, but also hear anyone who's sending audio back to you through the internet or whatever software you're using. So you can connect your headphones here, which is a small little mini jack, which is great. Or if you have the adapter like this, you can adapt your headphones up to the larger quarter-inch phono size, and you can plug that in there as well. The volume level for those headphones is right here. So there's a separate master headphones level that you can adjust. That won't affect your level out to the internet at all, or out to your computer recording. And down below that is the main mix for the whole thing. That, depending on the setting right here, which we'll talk about next, there's a little switch here that we have to talk about to finish up. But that main mix control is the master volume for all of your signals. And you can turn everything up or everything down. And that will affect your level to the speakers, if you're using speakers in the room. So this main mix affects the master level of everything going out to these two quarter-inch jacks, these two cables going out. Okay. Now, depending on this setting with this switch, which we'll talk about to finish up, it may impact it, but it usually doesn't. So there's this little switch here, which is called Record Source, and then in brackets it says 2PC. These three settings that this switch is in is where this mixer really allows you to achieve a couple different things. If you want to simply use it to record, then you would put this switch in the top position where it says dry channel 1 and 2. And what that'll do is it'll allow channel 1 and channel 2 to directly go out through the USB connection into your computer so they can be recorded with a software like Pro Tools or Reaper as two individual signals, so that in the recording software you can mix your mic 1 and your mic 2 as two separate recorded signals when you're mixing your music down later on. So that makes it work more like a traditional interface, like the Scarlett that I showed you. The middle position of this switch says input mix. That's a mix of all inputs into the computer. That would be channel 1, channel 2 if you had mics, channel 3 if you were plugging in music or background music. All those signals mixed together as a master stereo left and right output, and that's ideal for live streaming to Facebook or YouTube or teaching lessons over Zoom or Skype or whatever platform you're using for that purpose. So that's the ideal position for that. The last position is called Loopback, and it's difficult to explain when you would use it, but the basic premise of that is that the Loopback setting, depending on the online resource or online platform you're using, you may or may not want to hear the signal you're sending out into the internet come back to you. Normally you don't want that because it can create some echoing, some looping that can be very distracting or even sound bad. So we'll put that back in input mix, and know that if you ever need to hear a copy of what you're sending out to that online platform or to your computer back through as an additional signal to listen to, you can experiment with Loopback, but make sure you do some research about how to use that. I have yet to have to use this in any context where I've used Loopback. I usually use input mix, and if I was recording with it, I would use dry 1 and 2. So that's pretty much a crash course on how to use this mixer for everything from being a musician to being an exercise coach online. The only last thing I should mention is the two questions that may come up. Recording with it is great for, I would say, entry-level or hobbyist-level recording, but this mixer is inexpensive, partially because it only sends out a 16-bit quality level of audio. If you have no idea what I mean by 16-bit, don't worry about it. You're good. You can always learn more about that if you want to. But basically, if you're a recording hobbyist and you want to get serious about recording, this mixer doesn't put out a high enough signal quality, digitally speaking, to allow for a lot of processing and high production volume level. You'd want a 24-bit interface, and there are lots of options out there for that. A good example is the equivalent unit like this made by a company called Mackie. If you've ever heard of a Mackie mixer, there's a beautiful Mackie mixer that I recommend that is got most of the features of this, but ups the game to what's called a 24-bit audio level quality, and that really helps with recording. Mentioning that Mackie mixer, it does bring up one other question. Whenever musicians want to use something like this to perform live on Facebook or to be part of an open mic or some kind of performance on video conferencing like Zoom or Skype, they often want some echo or some ambience, some reverb, whatever one of those words works for you. So I often get asked, is there any way I can have some reverb or some ambience? Basically, the singing or the guitar playing or the keyboard sounds a little dry, sterile, and they want some echo or some room sound that's artificially created. It's usually called reverb, or some people call it echo. This mixer doesn't have echo built in, but that same Mackie mixer, which would be my next recommendation above and beyond this mixer, does contain some built-in reverb or some built-in effects that can really add that musical nuance to your live performances. And it's only a little bit more expensive. Where this mixer is $100, I believe the Mackie mixer is up around the 300 level or 2 something, around there, 200 and something, maybe $300, depending on where you buy it. So besides that mixer, I would say this is one of my favorite items out there. Not so much for recording professionals at all, but if you want to just get onto the web, as I talked about, and start live streaming on Facebook, teaching guitar lessons, basically upping your game in how you present your sound to the web out there, the World Wide Web that's out there. If you're trying to get your sounds out there for coaching, teaching, or music, and you just want to up the game, be able to mix components together and get good quality signals into your computer, and you want to do that all without too much investment of learning all about mixers and the tech. You just want to get the job done, and you don't want to spend too much money and just get your foot in the door. You can't beat the ART USBMix4. It's a great little unit, and it's available in a lot of different suppliers if you need to find it. One example is you could check out Long & McQuaid. They're a company based in Canada that sells this mixer, and it is in stock, and they're a great company to work with. If you want to find one, you can check out the Long & McQuaid website, and you'll probably find it there. It's also sold in many other places as well, but that's a great place to start. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Greg in the Box. More videos to come. If you're interested in recording a little bit and learning a little bit about some open source softwares like Reaper that can allow you to record your music and produce your music using your new interface, I have a video on the way for that, and also a video in preparation that shows how this mixer interfaces with your computer and the different settings and how it appears as a source within Facebook or within Zoom. Okay, take care, and I hope that was helpful and educational.